BeanStalk, AWS BeanStalk service, and where it is required and how to deploy the BeanStalk environment in AWS console. So before we get into that, let's quickly go through the couple of slides presentations. Uh, to understand how the regular deployment works in the legacy environment and how it differs in the cloud and how AWS Beanstalks take advantage of the regular way of deploying the application. So let's look at this presentations before we get into the actual way of creating the Beanstalk environment. So this is a quick tale of deployment. So if you look at any company before cloud, how the developers do the day-to-day deployment is this is the kind of flow chart, the kind of scenario they used to follow. Let's say we have two developers. The developers keep their source code. It means the content development source codes. They keep it in their local desktop. Here in the picture we have two. Assume it's like 500 or 1000 developers. So everybody keep their source code on their development. They kept doing the development, and whenever the project requires to be updated, they all push the changes on daily basis, or whenever they follow the process like agile process, or there are so many process waterfall. So whenever their part is done, they push the change into the central source control server, basically the version control server. Typically, there are lots of version control servers available in market, so they can use anything. And once everybody push the everybody or anybody push the changes into the source control server, they will have a kind of build server, technically Maven or Ant. These are all the build servers available over there in market. So there are lots also. So the build system will pull the latest applied source control, I mean latest applied source code from the version control server, and just do the build process. The build process is nothing but it creates a var or jar file. So before it does, it just go through some kind of quick build and test uh, process. And once the test is fail or success, based on the uh, life cycle configuration, either it will go to the next production deployment or test development deployment. If it is failure, the failure will be sent to the manager, whoever the project lead or somebody, and the manager again will send to push it back to the developers to fix it. So this is the complete life cycle, how the developers work starting from the scratch and until the source code is getting deployed into the production. So just to recall, everybody develop on their individual PCs, and they push their changes to the central version control, and there will be a centralized system build server which pulls the changes from whatever the latest updates from the version control, and just do the build process, and it automatically do some kind of testing, and then based on failure or success, it will come back, go to the production, or come back to the bug fix. So this is the regular deployment any companies follows. So why we are talking about that? So the life cycle is not really completed here. Although the developer developed and tested everything past, when the application goes to the production server, development server, and test server, of course we need to, mostly people have so much of different environments, dev, QA, stage, prod. So when you need to push the code to multiple server, this is where so many questions comes in. So this is where another important team involves, infrastructure team. So the infrastructure team, usually they manage the data center, servers, OS, patching, networking, all those stuff. And typically all the environment will be the different kind of architecture. For example, development, most of the company, they don't keep high-end servers. They don't need high availability servers or DR solutions for that. But for a protection, they may need, high availability, disaster recovery. So why we are talking about that is, so anytime in the previous screen, anytime the software development this process is completed, when the developer comes to the implementations or deployment of those code into the any other environment like servers, they'll have to interact with the infrastructure team, and they need to get ready with the following information: what kind of server they need, kind of architecture, the number of CPU, memory, is that high availability server is required, is that automatically scale up or scale down, do you need load balancer, what kind of DNS. So all these informations, the developer has to share it to the infrastructure guy, so that the infrastructure guy build all these servers, and then they will push the source code and test their application. So in case of any failure, it is not so easy to roll back. Sometimes they will request the infrastructure people, a person, to rebuild the operating system or install some missing packages or software dependency packages. Or sometimes they everything will be fine with the dev, they just wanted to clone a same dev server as a stage or production, so still they need their help, infrastructure team help, to clone it, because cloning the OS, cloning everything along with the software, it's like a quite difficult task. So this is where the infra team plays a major role, the part of life cycle, development life cycle process. So once we all adapted to the cloud, so things were a little easy now. So the infrastructure team, now we call it as a sysops team or DevOps team. So of course, if we are in AWS, you can build everything, all the infrastructure so fast by using EC2, by using autoscale, ELB. So there are so many things we covered in the previous. So everything is right click and easy to deploy. But still somebody has to architect, and somebody has to deploy everything. It's like manual process. So for the developers, it is really a tough job. So that's where the Beanstalk is coming in place. So now I hope you understand. There are two different teams. Development team, they do the development, that's their job. The infrastructure team, they set up the infrastructure to deploy the application, that's the infrastructure job. So what is Beanstalk now? Beanstalk is a service given by provided by AWS, um, where developer they can just focus on writing their code. They don't need to spend time managing, configuring servers, database, or firewalls networks. And it's a service for deploying and scaling web application, and services deployed with certain type of supported application platform. Right now, AWS Beanstalk support Java application, .NET, PHP, Node.js, Python, Ruby, Go, and also the Docker. What is Docker? We will talk later. If you come with any application other than Java, PHP, Python, Ruby, anything listed here, if you come with your own custom application, then you can go to Docker, and Docker Beanstalk environment will support uh, non-supported platforms on the Beanstalk actually. So high level quick short thing about Docker is like a container virtualization of OS for application. We'll talk in a different next probably in my next video we'll talk about ECS, where we will cover more about the Docker. Okay, so 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 it's like a predefined environment supported by Beanstalk. So all you need is just developer come with the code, upload, and Beanstalk automatically handle the deployment, and it takes care of capacity provisioning, it takes care of building load balancer, takes care of creating the auto scaling and application health monitoring. Everything is end to end taken care, and no additional charges. That's a very great thing. There is no additional charge for Elastic Beanstalk as a service. All you need to pay is the underlying resources, what you do, what you use it on top of the Beanstalk. For example, if you use 10 EC2 instance, if you use ELB, only for those you will pay, not for the Beanstalk as a service. And you don't have to really create autoscale, ELB, security group, etc. We will see that practically so that you will understand better. So long story short, Beanstalk is a ready-made service. The developer, don't need to really interact with the infrastructure person, or they really don't need to learn a lot of stuff about, ELB, how to create, how to tune all those stuff. They can focus on development and just come with the code and deploy. And if any application developed with Java, .NET, PHP, Node.js, Python, Ruby, whatever listed here, only those application platforms are supported on the Beanstalk. Okay, if you come with any other than this listed, then you may have to go for a Docker Beanstalk environment. So this is the introduction for Beanstalk. So let's see, some of the components in the Beanstalk. So probably I'll go through this quickly, this couple of more slides, then we will go to the actual practical session. So application, Beanstalk, the important component is application. Application, let's take an example. This is a company, we are going to develop an application called payroll application or timesheet application, something like that. So that application is nothing but a folder where you can have multiple environment. It just application is the very high level folder which contains the environment. So as I mentioned in the example, the company is creating an application, payroll application. They wanted to set up multiple environment for that same application, like dev, prod, test. Not necessarily the same name, they can have any name. So they can keep those, they can create multiple environment under the application. So remember the two components we are going to be we are going to create when creating the Beanstalk is, the first one is application, just the folder, and the second one is the environment. That can be any name. So in my test scenario, I'm going to create like dev, test and prod, something like that. So what is the environment? Let's go a little deeper. So we talked about payroll is application folder. Environment, when you come to environment, there are three multiple environment I talked, right? I'm picking one environment called dev for our example purpose. So the environment contains the vital information, what kind of application platform you are going to use. In my scenario, I picked, let's say, Python. Okay, and what kind of environment tier you want to use. So Beanstalk support two different types of environment, web tier and worker tier. What is web tier? What is worker tier? Web tier is nothing but any application like web applications responding through the web, HTML, HTTP protocol. So those are all called web servers, web tier applications. What is worker tier? Worker tiers are like, let's say you are creating an application which always work like a backend, integrated with SQS and receives the job request from SQS and and process that at the background and respond back. That's the worker tier. Anyhow, I'm not really good with the worker tier. Today we'll talk only about the web tier. It's like just a web-based applications like Node.js, PHP, Python. The listed here are like web-based applications. So all these are anything, any platform you can pick. So let's say in our lab scenario, I'm going to pick Python, and then environment type, where we can choose whether you need a just single instance. Let's say first time I'm deploying my application. I don't want to build everything in ELB and multiple node and everything. I just wanted to start with a single instance and test it. Once everything goes well, then I can change it to load balance auto scale. So you have two options. You can pick a single instance environment, or you can pick load balance auto scale. Remember, even if you pick single instance, Beanstalk is going to come with automatically comes with auto scale, but the number set with just one. So single instance still with auto scale, but with the one instance. When you pick load balance, also it comes with auto scale, and what type of EC2 instance and those informations. Okay, so There are a few more components also. So we talked about three components so far. What is application? It's a folder. What is environment? Environment is nothing but the underlying, a component of application. Usually environment contains uh, type of environment here and platform, what application platform, single instance, multi-instance, of those informations. And the third one is application source bundle and application versions. Application has some restrictions. I mean, when you come with the application, you should it should be a var, it should be a var jar file. I think it's my typo. It should be jar, not car. I'm sorry about that. Var jar source bundle. And application versions is updated copy of the var jar. What it mean, what is application source and what is application version. Very first time when you deploy application, it's just called application. When you then after your deployment you are doing some changes, and you keep on uploading the changes. That's called application version. So let's say the first time, very first time when you upload the application, Beanstalk will just add one tag, one number called 001. Second time you are changing and then uploading the new zip version, it is called 002. So it's called application versions. So when using AWS console to deploy the application or application version, you will need to upload a source bundle like var or jar file. What it is your application source file supposed to be a var or jar file. Let me correct it right away because I don't want to carry forward this. Why it went? Okay, it's supposed to be a var or a jar file, and I'm sorry, it's not a var or jar. It's supposed to be var or zip file. This is the correct one. Okay, this is correct. It's supposed to be var or zip. Okay, so the application source bundle must meet this extension, and it should not exceed 512 MB, and it should not include any parent folder on top of or top level directory. What it means is, let's say my application, I created a zip file called abc.zip. In that situation, when I extract abc.zip, I should see all my application subfolders and directories. I don't want to see one more directory called ABC, and inside I don't want to keep any data inside that. That's what, when you unzip, your application data should be there. Don't keep any more directory and then your application. So that's what this line mean. And there are multiple way you can deploy application. One another way is EBCLI. That's a wonderful exclusive command line tool for Beanstalk deployment. It is not like the AWS CLI is different and EBCLI is different. I would use only EBCLI. We will cover that later, and there are multiple other way also. We will see that actually. So now let's go quickly into the let's say this is in a scenario. Let's say I am going to install my application into Beanstalk. How it is going to work? It just the step one, it create S3 bucket behalf of you, and in that S3 bucket it just create a directory with your application name, whatever the name of application you mentioned. Just create one name, and when you upload your application zip file, all the zip file, when you upload just one file, it will be just, of course, the app version 1. Whenever you upload for any changes, it will be stored like 0202. These numbers may be different, but just for an example purpose. So what I'm trying to say is, whenever you deploy application through Beanstalk, very first time it creates S3 bucket and then create application folder, and it keeps all your application versions inside that folder. So any these versions you can map it to any of your environment, and and start your applications. When you see practically, you will understand that. If you go to your S3 after your Beanstalk is created, you can go to S3 and look at your look at the S3 bucket called Elastic Beanstalk, your region name, and then your account name. If you go inside, you can see your application directory. This is pretty much the very high level presentation. I have few more. We will talk about that presentation later, because before we go further, I wanted to really talk about, go through the practical way of creating Beanstalk environment. Okay, so this is my console. So let's I'm in Oregon region. So and see, when you first time create Beanstalk, this is the screen you are gonna get. If you already have, you will get this create application. You can, this is like a shortcut. I'll go with this way, create a new application. So remember our presentation, the first component is application. It's like a folder. So I'm going to create an application called, let's say, payroll. And then description can be anything. Payroll, let's say I'm going to put payroll app, and next. That's it. So this process, basically what happened is it just created one S3 bucket at the background. We'll talk about that later. We'll check that later. And then now we need to create the second component called environment. When you create an environment, it is asking me what kind of environment you want to create, web server or worker tier. Remember we talked about it. Web server environment is the one we are going to choose, create web server. And here I need to pick the platform. So in our example, we will take a Python, and you can pick so many, there are so many options are there. If your application is not this platform, then you may have to pick Docker or multi-Docker, so that you can customize, you can install any custom application. So what will happen when how Beanstalk work is, when you pick this platform, Amazon is going to give you the CloudFormation stack. They already have a CloudFormation stack. This is the stack version and everything, and they have a pre-built AMI, Amazon machine image, the instance AMI, and they will build the new instance from that AMI. That instance is going to build with all the required packages for Python and everything. So when you deploy the application, everything is taken care. So bad thing is technically Amazon will not support custom AMI. It means you cannot bring your own EC2 instance. Beanstalk will provide instance from the Amazon supported AMI only. So you cannot create one instance by yourself. When I say you cannot create, it is not supported. But technically, there are so many customers, they come with the custom AMI for Beanstalk. They do some customization, and they still use it under Beanstalk, but officially it is not supported by Amazon Web Service. So anyhow, I picked Python. So here you can choose these things: single instance or load balancing, auto scale. So I'm going to pick single instance so that our lab will go pretty quick. So just one instance for a Python. So as I mentioned, it's going to pick from Python. It's going to install Python 3.4 64-bit Amazon Linux. This is the latest version. If you think, hey, your application is developed not for a Python 3.4, something else, then you can very well go here and pick Python 2.7 blah 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 something. So I would always go for the latest one. Okay, so you can change the platform also, but only the listed supported one. You cannot come with your own. That's the only restriction right now. Okay, next. So sample applications. So I'm just saying sample applications. So because I'm not the developer, I don't have any applications. So I'm just using the sample applications. What it means is Amazon already kept some of the Python sample application in S3 bucket. So when I pick sample, it automatically goes and download. If you have your own application, of course, you can just go and browse and deploy. I don't have right now. Or if you have your application already uploaded in S3, you can put it in S3 and mention the bucket and key so that it can work. So for this, I'm just going to do sample application and then do next. See, look at here. We created only application, right? Now it created the environment inside the application. So one application folder can have multiple environment. You can create so many environment inside one application. So let's say I'm going to create this payroll application environment for, let's say, development purpose. Then if success, then I go to test QA and production. So I'll put dev. Okay, so always check, always whenever you create environment, Beanstalk is going to come with the URL. That URL is like your environment date name dot your region dot elastic beanstalk. You can map, you can set the alias record in Route 53 for your own domain. For example, you don't want your developer to call payroll app blah blah dot US West Elastic Beanstalk. You want to do payroll dot slash blah blah dot, let's say, mycompany.com. Then you can always set the alias record for this one, you know so that you don't have to use this URL, but still this is a default URL. You can check it is available. Just say next. If you want, you can create a database RDS, and you can set up everything inside the VPC. um, uh, some people, they wanted to build Beanstalk for a private, within a private VPC only for their internal purpose. Some they do it for a public. So you can basically, point is, you can create Beanstalk environment in a default VPC. If you don't select, it will be in a default VPC. If you want to be in a specific VPC, you created already subnets, routing table, everything, then you can pick this. For this demo, I just left so that it will be created in a default VPC. Next, here this is an important thing, configuration. So you can pick the type of instance. I'm picking T1 micro, and I'm just picking some my key, and and if you want to just notification, you can attach your email, and the health check monitoring, you can say enhanced or basic. Enhanced means, we'll cover that later. Once this is created, I can walk through that. And you can pick the type of root disk, and you can also say the type of size of the disk. By default, it will be created with 8 GB disk. If you think your application need, let's say 100 GB disk, you can create 100 GB right away. Or if your application need very high performance disk, you can choose provisioned IOPS with, you can mention the IOPS also. But in my lab purpose, I'm just going a general purpose disk. Default, if I leave it blank, it will be a default 8 GB. That's fine for the sample application. Anytime you can go and change, but remember, Beanstalk, it comes with one single disk only. I prefer to just stay with one disk. Don't have multiple disk, because it's just going to have your OS and your web application. Any static data, any dynamic data, anything if you are changing, try to keep it in a RDS. Create a RDS database, or any instance with the database running separately, and make Beanstalk environment application server writes the data into the database, so that it will be much more easier to manage. So 8 GB is enough for me. Do next. Okay, I just put 8 GB. Next. And environment tag, I can just name it like anything. I will say payroll app, so that my servers, everything will be tagged with this name. Okay, name is already reserved. Actually, this is for development. If I have multiple, I can do dev payroll. So next. And okay, this is very important area, instance profile and service role. There are two IAM roles. I already, if you don't have, it needs to create one. So I would say create new role, create new role. Why it is really required? Every instance which is going to be launched inside Beanstalk, it is going to be attached with instance profile, so that that instance profile is going to have a permission to allow the instance to talk to S3 bucket, to download the application bundle, whatever you are uploading, and later any deployment time you want to download the latest version, and any kind of email notification, SNS, SQS. So all this privilege, it is already, it automatically create. That's what called instance profile. What is service role? This is another role automatically created, IAM role. This service role will be attached to Beanstalk service. This role will have a privilege. It ensures Beanstalk as a service has a permission to talk to this EC2 instance, also talk to ELB, autoscale to add more instance, to attach the instance into the load balancer. So all these, permissions, we are granting to Beanstalk service. Also, it will have access to S3. So that's the idea of it. So once this is created, we will go ahead and look at that. So just go ahead and create the new role. So it's creating the default profiles and everything. And Shakti. And uh, finally, this is the description of what we did so far. Uh, we our application name is payroll app, description is this, and we chose web tier. This is the platform we are going to use. It's right now it is a single instance. It's for a sample application, and this is the URL we are going to access. Later you can CNAME to anything, and this is the instance configuration detail, blah blah. And it's the two roles, service role and instance profile. It's going to, system is going to automatically create. Later you go to IAM and look at this role, then we will understand what this roles as a permission. Launch it. Okay, so this is a beautiful console which which will give a lot of information. The important one is the event log. When during the creation or during the deployment, anytime you can watch the recent event log, which will tell what it is happening. The very first step is the moment it create the environment, it uses the Beanstalk S3 bucket. Remember the very first time when we created the application, it created the bucket. This is the bucket name US is 20. Today it is with the number, but it will be mapped with your app. If you go inside this S3 bucket, actually if you look at, this is the Beanstalk, your region, this is it's my account number. So if you go inside, you will see the application called payroll app, whatever, and then it is creating the EAP, because we created with one instance, so that one instance needs to be accessed through the internet. That's the reason it comes with EAP. If you use ELB kind of environment, then you don't have a EAP, for instance. You will have a regular IP, because ELB will have a different URL. That URL will be used for CNAME purpose. Since it's a single instance, single instance will have a EAP. Remember that only single instance will have EAP. If you have a multiple instance under ELB, you don't have EAP. You will have a regular IP. When we convert, we will understand that. After the EAP, it's creating a security group. Remember your security group, it automatically creates and allow port 22 and port 80 for everybody. Don't change that, leave it. Probably port 22 you can customize, but don't touch port 80. For Beanstalk, port 80 is really important, because Beanstalk as a service, it talks to the Beanstalk service endpoint, SNS endpoint, SQS endpoint, lots of other services. So you must allow that port 80 for everybody, so that it can go out and communicate to the service. And but for a port 22 you can control, although it is comes default with everybody, you can go ahead and control yourself. And now it's trying to launch the EC2 instance. This may take a few minutes, and it's added an EC2 instance. Okay, so this is wonderful, right? So this is the magic of Beanstalk. Let's say I'm a developer, I have a source code, so I just install my sample app. I'm not Linux guy, so I just picked everything. I just selected it, just coming up. I'm not familiar with load balancer or auto scale, but everything automatically happening on behalf of you. That's the beauty of having uh, elastic um, elastic beanstalk service. There are lots of other features also. Once this is created, I'll go through that. So let's, while this is creating, let's go ahead and look at this. My application is payroll app. Inside, let me click here. See, this is payroll app. Right now the payroll app got one single green box. It's called my payroll app development environment. I can create one more environment, and I can just make it as test or dev or prod or something. It will come like one more box. So what I'm trying to say is, one application folder can contain tons of uh, different application environment, with the different servers and different codes, URLs. So that's the beauty. Okay, when it looks green, it means health is okay. Whenever it is green, it's pending to okay. It looks like everything is good. Whenever green means green status means your application is working fine. Probably if you click here, see, congratulations, your application is deployed. Uh, that's beautiful. So when you click here, whenever this color green means your application is successfully deployed, environments are created, instance is up and running, URL is accessible. That's when the green will come. When you see gray, you are trying to deploy a new version, something is going on, still pending state, that's where the gray will come. When you see red, it's broken, degraded, something problem. So these are all the color codes, you will understand. Okay, so now let's look at a couple of other things. Look at here, this is the version we choose, this is the Python, everything. Anytime, okay, I deployed the sample application, right? So now I have the sample application code in my desktop. I wanted to redeploy with a small change. Go ahead and choose your file, attach the file, and attach the file and deploy again. So it's like a newer version. So every time, anytime you wanted to do the newer version, just go ahead and deploy the newer version. Ensure your health check always shows okay. And let's go ahead and do something here. Important thing, configuration. If you wanted to do any modification in the beanstalk, this is the page, configuration page. So remember, this is a single instance, right? Even though it is a single instance, this comes with auto scale. So this is a single instance, and you can choose the availability zone so that that your instance will be used in that availability zone. And if I wanted to change, okay, my application is tested well, I want to change from load balance auto scaling, and go to load balance auto scale, and I can simply say apply, so that your instance will be, now your environment will be migrated from single instance to load balanced environment. Whenever any infrastructure change you do, uh, this removes your instance and add the new instance. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. It takes quite a long time. The reason is, last time it's a single instance, this time it is going to come with auto scale and ELB. It takes a little more than that. Okay, let's see, while that's coming, let's see multiple other things. So now look at here, it's now coming under load balancer single, because still it is with one instance only. But anytime you can go and change. Minimum count is 1, maximum count is 4. You can change to minimum count 2, so that it will automatically add. And you can have a scaling trigger, what kind of threshold you want to choose in your environment to scale up and scale down. You can tell, for example, your server, see, this is a very difficult part. By default, any auto scale load balancer environment comes with scaling trigger of network out and network in traffic. That's it. If you can very well change that based on your requirement. There is no standard recommendation over here. There are some application environment where the application server needs to be scaled based on CPU usage. Some environment scale up and scale down needs to happen based on memory usage. In some place, you need a number of connection. Based on that, you want it to scale up and scale down. So you understand your environment and then configure the scaling however you want. It's up to you to decide that, being an application architect. So what I will do is I'll configure a beanstalk or any environment. Since we have a cloud watch, you can watch the metrics of the server application usage for a week or couple of days and see the trend. How is the memory usage? How is the CPU? How is the network? How is the number of connections? Then take a decision which is the best parameter for you to scale up and scale down. So then you can go ahead here and choose all these, any of these supported type of parameters. Let's say I want to go for CPU based, go for CPU, go for maximum. Whenever maximum CPU percentage goes more than 80%, scale up. Okay. um, Measurement, I'm sorry, this is a period. Every 5 minutes, let's say uh, every 10 minutes keep on do the evaluation, or every 1 minute keep on do the evaluation, whatever you want. And if anytime if this goes more than 80%, scale one instance or two instance or one instance. If anytime if the memory usage goes less than 30%, then -1. So this is for a way how to do for CPU. If you say you wanted to go by number of request count, because it's a web server, right? Anytime your maximum number here, you need a number, right? Count. Anytime your maximum number of connections, number of web server hit connections to your EL becomes more than 200, add one more, or less than 50, -1 server. So these numbers all depends on your environment. So you should know how it is behaving based on the CloudWatch trend, and then decide these factors actually. Okay. So I'm not going to do any changes. I'm just walking through this for you. And then this is very important part here. And then logs. This is another part. Anytime you got struck, you wanted to check the log. Typically, you don't really have to log into the server, because I know most of the developer, they don't really like to log into Linux server or Windows server to check the logs. So they can simply go here and request logs. If they do last log, BeanStalk automatically goes and connect to the underlying EC2 instance and do tail-f and retrieve all important logs, EB activity log and var log, message, HTTP log, or Python, whatever. So all those logs, it will, if you do full log, it just goes and grabs everything from var log directory and create a zip file and give it to you. You can, with that, you can do analysis and check, for example, your application deployment failed or something happened. You can look at these logs, or you can forward that to Amazon Web Service support team, so that they can investigate further on these logs and guide you further. This for the logs. Alternatively, you can log into the server and check that also. This is the quickest way. And health, it's a beautiful thing where you can, it's a single page where you can look at the health of the running instance. So right now I'm running with just one instance. Since we just started, I don't see any rating over here. Probably if you leave it for a day, then you will see is there how many 200 requests, successful requests you got, how many 400 requests, all these kind of errors you will get. I mean, it's a web server, right? Web server related latencies and load average, everything will be IO weight, CPU, everything will be logged. It's a beautiful place to look at the log for all the servers actually. If you have more than one server, of course you will be listed here. And monitoring, this is monitoring page. The health page is just to look at the actual numbers, just the numbers, and it will say okay or not okay, that's it. But the monitoring page will give you the nice graphical view and tell you the healthy host CPU usage and network output, blah blah, and so far the numbers are not populated. Once populated, you will see those things also. Fine. Alarms. You can, of course, I didn't create any alarm. If you want, you can create your own alarm, so that whenever the new instance comes, you will get an email notification, or whenever CP goes up, any auto scale event happen, or any ELB, any 500 error, 400 error, all those you can set up the, of course, SNS alert notification to you. And this is managed updates. So if you enable it automatically update the platform. For example, today we picked Python so and so version. Later Amazon comes with the later version. Now it can go ahead and update that. That's for the management update. It's the latest one. Even I'm not familiar with that. And events. So this is the event log. In the dashboard you see that. So the event log says it removed the instance because it added successfully created a new configuration, because remember we deleted the EAP because we moved from single instance to ELB autoscale. So that's what before it delete everything, remove the old instance, remove the EAP, it created the auto. If you look at the event log, it created the load balancer, it created the autoscale group, and it created the alarms, and then everything, once it uploaded the application, deployed, it added the EC2 instance. Once everything done, then it deleted the old environment. That's the beauty of BeanStalk. Whenever you change anything in the infrastructure, you just create everything new, and then it deletes the old one. So that, for example, today I am with the T1 micro. Later you feel, hey, T1 micro is not really good enough, I want to go for M3 type instance. When you go and change the instance type, of course your instance will be changed. So before it delete the new old one, it creates the new and deploy the application and add it into the load balancer, and then it delete the old one. That's the beauty of it. So this pretty much about the Beanstalk thing. Let me go to dashboard again. So a few more thing I wanted to cover in the console here. Action, load configuration, save configuration. So these are all basically this is for load configuration. Is you can create a configuration. For example, today you configured something, you wanted to save that, or you already have something in a JSON format, you can load it and keep it with you. It's called saved configuration. So that by using this saved configuration, you can build new environment exactly like that. You don't have to pass all the parameter. So that's the idea. For example, you want to create a new environment under the same application for QA or production. You don't want to type everything one more time. So if you create a saved configuration, you can use the saved configuration and then let me go back and explain you. From here, if I go and action load configuration, sorry, because I don't have any saved configuration, I cannot load anything. So first I have to do save configuration and create a save configuration. So this is dev save config. So I'm basically taking only the configuration data of this and saving that as a JSON file for a future use. So using this, I can create a new environment. So that's the idea behind it actually. So that's beautiful, right? So and then if I go here, I can do swap URL. What it means is uh, I have two environments, dev and QA. You can every URL, every environment you get the URL, something like that. You can swap the URL between it. For example, you are doing a production. You already have one production environment. You wanted to do some patching, so you clone the environment called prod clone and do your patching and application testing. Everything is success. You don't have to go back to production and redo everything again. Since the test phases went well, you can simply go ahead and swap the URL from today I don't have two environments, so that's what it is not showing. If you have two, it will show which one you wanted to swap. So you can simply swap the URL, so that and then delete the old production, so the new prod will be active, will be active from that moment. That's the swap. That's a beautiful thing. Within a minute, you can clone, you can swap, and restart app servers. So anytime you want to restart the server, underlying server and operating system and application, then you just click on restart app servers. And rebuild environment. This is very critical. When you do rebuild, basically it wipe out everything and recreate everything from the beginning as it is. But if you have any data, you manually changed anything later, everything will be lost. What I'm trying to say, let's say you build up, now I have a EC2 instance, right? So let's say somebody logged in and created some users outside BeanStalk. When you rebuild, that will be gone. Basically, when you do rebuild, it create new autoscale, new ELB, new instance, everything new. Of course, you already uploaded your application bundle in a S3, so it will be from S3. And terminate, of course, just terminate everything. So that's pretty much I covered. I'm sure it's a very lengthy video. We'll talk more about BeanStalk. So right now we are with autoscale and ELB. So quickly you can go to your S3 and look at your application source bundle where it is created. So see Elastic Beanstalk is my account number. When I go there, it shows resources. Here you can see multiple environments, and this is my environment, and so those things are created. Okay, cool. And then of course, if I go to EC2, I can see the new instance is created. Yeah. Okay, payroll. So the one initially we created with a single instance, and then we converted to autoscale, right? Autoscale ELB. The single instance was terminated. The new environment was created, and you can see the load balancer this time. BeanStalk load balancer. This the load balancer is created. It registered with one instance, and the auto scale and launch configuration, everything is there. So good thing, all this so one auto scale group is there, one launch configuration is there. So right now it is with the min quality, I mean min 1 max 1, you can change anytime. So everything, one DevOps or sysadmin, they're supposed to do one by one component. So now the beauty is the developer, they just came and they can go to the BeanStalk service and they can just right click and upload their application and deploy everything. So that's the beauty. Everything now, see, important thing, look at here, you will get the URL, just go click the URL, your application is done. So that's the beauty. So this URL is mapped to the ELB URL, and the ELB URL today is sending the traffic to one instance. If you increase 100, it reaches only to 100 instance. That's the beauty. So that's it. I'm done with my demonstration. I am going to delete this application. So this delete, remember, this is a top application folder. If I delete from here, it delete the application, also underlying environments. So let's say today inside I have only one environment. If I delete the application today, I have one. Tomorrow, if I have dev, prod, QA, if it, so let's say 100 applications. When I delete the application, everything will be deleted. So be careful. So if you want to delete only one environment, go click on the environment and go to action and terminate the so that it just delete that specific environment. If you want to terminate delete the application, it deletes everything. So that's high level folder. I hope you remember that. So that's pretty much. Probably next video I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to do customization in Elastic Beanstalk by using .eb extensions. I will come with some sample scripts, and we talk a little bit more on how to troubleshoot in case of any deployment error, how to review the logs. All this we will see in the next video. So I hope this will be helpful. Please leave your comments. If you need any questions, just send me the comment. I can reply or respond to you as soon as I can. I'm sorry I took almost like 3 months gap to send this video. So hope you guys can see lots of videos from me from here. Have a great day. Bye.